first book review of the year. Fingers crossed for 2019. Alright, third time recording this audio. Let's see if I get it right. Intrinsical was written by Lani Woodland. It's about a girl named Yara Silva who has a very special gift. She can speak to and see ghosts and spirits. This was something that was passed down to her by her grandmother, and she finds herself in a weird spiritual world after a drowning incident with her love interest Brent. And they have to figure out a way to kill off this evil entity that is taking over the bodies of the students at their school. Now, once the bodies of these students start to rot away, or this entity no longer wants them, he kills the student by making it look like the student committed suicide, which ultimately has resulted in the school developing a reputation of being haunted and having a mass number of student suicides, including both Brent and Yara's brothers. There's really not a lot to say about Intrinsical. Lani Woodland is fine as a writer. There's some odd sentences here or there that I found, but nothing worth bringing attention to. There is one issue with the book I will talk about here in a second, but it's just fine. And, first book review of the year, I was hoping it would be something kind of like last year's first review of From a Buick 8, where I had a bit more to chew on, but there's really not. There are some minor things, like we learn of Yara's brother and how he died of suicide, but it's dropped on us in the first third of the book. There's no lead up to it, and it's supposed to be this surprise, like, whoa, holy crap, he died by suicide too. But there's no lead up, and you can tell the author meant for it to be kind of a surprise, and it didn't work. Another thing is the spirit, when it takes over people's bodies, it tries to go about this person's normal life. And towards the end, Yara has to convince her friends that, hey, that's not really Brent. That's an evil spirit. She has to convince her friend Sherry and her boyfriend, I believe his name was Steve. His name was Steve. And so she goes to tell Steve, okay, listen, this is going to sound strange, but Brent has been taken over by this weird spirit. And Steve's like, oh yeah, I believe you. Brent's been acting weird lately. And all I can think of is, really? Someone acting weird is enough for you to be convinced that, oh, they've been taken over by a weird interdimensional spirit. God forbid one of this guy's friends, has a relative that dies. Like Brent did. How does he know Brent wasn't acting weird because he was missing his brother? Or God forbid one of his friends stubs their toe and he doesn't see it happen and they're just like, oh, my life's awful because I stubbed my toe. Is he going to think, oh, that's a spirit? Interdimensional spirit. He's been taken over by Satan. But aside from that, I do like Yara as a character. I think she's pretty cool. That's all I can say. She's not a damsel in distress. There's a couple instances where she needs to be rescued, but it's never Bella Swan levels of damsel. However, there is one problem with this book that I have to address, and that is the amount of spelling, grammatical, and spacing and punctuation errors throughout this book. So, I occasionally find little minor errors sprinkled here and there throughout books. Some of my absolute favorite authors have made small errors in the past, and that's perfectly fine. One of my absolute favorite books of all time, Redwall by Brian Jakes. There's one scene where Methuselah and Matthias are underneath the Redwall Abbey, looking for the grave of Martin the Warrior, and it's just the two of them. But Brian Jakes accidentally writes that when Methuselah or Matthias go to say something, he writes Constance, the badger, says it instead. But you know what? That's fine. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. But Intrinsical, either Lani tried to edit this herself, which is always kind of a bad idea, because if you read your own story constantly when you're writing it, and it's real easy for you to miss mistakes, or the editor she hired, she either didn't pay them enough or she paid them way too much. There are so many spacing errors. Some sentences where there's no space between the words, so it's all smashed into one. 2 or 3 spaces between letters on certain pages, and some where, like I said, there's no spacing at all. The punctuation, the quote brackets, turned in the opposite direction. There's a couple times where Brent's name is misspelled. Now, with the spacing issues, it could very well be that the type of writing software she used didn't translate well into the writing software that the publisher used to publish the book, and it caused some spacing issues. But the punctuation issues, the fact that some words don't even have punctuation at the end, the quotation mark problems, the spelling errors, these are things that as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, okay, 1 or 2 is fine, but then I found more and more. And it's like, okay, this is becoming enough of an issue that it's actually going to affect the grade of the book. As I said, humans make mistakes, but there's quite a few in this book, and I can't overlook that. Overall, Intrinsical is a perfectly fine young adult novel. It's a part of a series. I don't know if I'm like frothing at the mouth to read the rest of the series. If I somehow get my hands on it, sure, I'll give it a shot. I'll read the second one if I come across it. I was given this book in a box of young adult novels that I bought at the half-price bookstore for like $15, $20. I got an entire box of books. I wasn't going to say no to that. But as it stands now, I'm going to go ahead and give Intrinsical a C-. Minus mostly because of all of those errors. I mean, I even looked up the publishing company, thinking maybe it was independently published, and so maybe she didn't have a publisher, maybe she didn't have an editor. Keep in mind, I haven't published a book yet myself, so I don't have the best knowledge of this kind of stuff. But I thought maybe it was independently published, and that's why there's so many errors, because it was just her trying to get it published on her own. But no, she went through an actual publishing firm, so I don't understand what happened in the interim. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I have another young adult novel review, We Are the Goldens by Dana Reinhardt, coming up later on in this week. Until then, I'll see you later.